you guys today you're going to hear about how Aria's Simplicity visualizer application helped West and PacifiCorp learn much more about what was happening in their contact center operation and how to improve customer experience. Reason I'm so excited to make this introduction is Aria is one of our key launch partners for the App Foundry, which you heard about from Paul today up on main stage. And Aria's got 4 listings in the App Foundry, including Simplicity, and we really couldn't have launched such a strong program without them. So thank you guys very much, and I think you're going to hear some great things today.
Appreciate it.
Just as my role, I'm with Aria Solutions, and I'm the Senior Visualizer Business Consultant. So just to give you an idea and a lay of the land of what Visualizer is, it's an analytics tool developed by Aria, and as said, it's available now on the App Foundry. And it actively listens to the interaction events that are going around the Genesis environment and collects those, stores them in a flat file storage, and then is made visible through our Visualizer application. And what it does, it renders a visual interpretation of the event data that's being captured.
Great. Well, thanks, Chris. And since you started the introductions, I'll continue them. My name is Ron Owens. I'm the Senior Vice President responsible for products at Aria Solutions. And I'd like to introduce our 2 panelists, or actually I'd like for them to introduce themselves. We're very grateful and appreciative of the fact that they've taken time from their busy schedule to come down and speak with us today. So, Danny, would you start?
Yep. So I'm Dan Vitro with West Corporation, Director of their Systems Information. West is a services company, so we do a lot with IVR. We do a lot with hosted contact center, obviously, which is a big part of our Genesis platform. And then alerts, notifications, a lot of things around there. West has a large conferencing platform. Most people know it as Intercall. That's West Corporation as well. And then we also do 911 around North America. So a lot of different areas.
Todd?
My name's Todd. Sorry, a little nervous. My name's Todd McCall. I work for PacifiCorp. We're an energy company, subsidiary of Berkshire Hathaway. I'm in the telephony group, and we recently lifted and shifted our Avaya switch to the Genesis ACD. And it's been quite a wild ride, just looking at everything Genesis can do and understanding the complexities of it. And then along comes Aria. And now instead of pouring through 20 megabyte log files, I can see it all in one glance. So my experience in industry is about 17 years working with call centers in various different industries.
Excellent, thanks. So we're going to start off, one of the things that we wanted to accomplish is to kind of try and give you a little bit of a business perspective on what we have designed the product to achieve, and then what are some of the real results from that. So that said, Dan, would you start us off and talk about kind of what's the biggest challenge you face on a day-to-day basis?
Being an outsourcer, right, of a lot of different services, a big issue that we have is getting different reports, right? So if it's your own company, a lot of times you can kind of standardize how reports of incidents, how reports of different things come in. When you sit, though, on the other side of it, and you have a lot of companies that are coming to you, or clients that are coming to us, because we front end a lot of their call centers, trying to get that information and have it make sense across multiple different companies that you don't necessarily have a lot of control over, obviously is a big challenge for us. So a real big part of leveraging this tool for us is being able to validate when an incident or an issue comes in, or a report of something. And it's allowed us to be able to, much faster get in and be able to say, yeah, that's true or that's not true, and actually have a visual representation to be able to see what that actual issue is. And in fact, oftentimes, if it's truly an issue, right? A lot of times we've had to have the back and forth, which is always unpleasant with a client when they report something, and then you have to either say it's not true, or the information doesn't support it. This tool has definitely been able to help us with actually being able to show, hey, we can clearly show that it is true or it isn't true. And it takes a lot of the debate out of the time that's spent on is there really a problem, which is a huge thing that we have to deal with from a timing perspective.
So really kind of from, in your instance with a multi-tenant environment, you're dealing with organizations that have a business unit, but for some of our clients here, I'm sure it's the same thing with dealing with the business side or the other, trying to explain that, still helping with that communication. That's very good. Todd, how about you? What are some of the challenges that have been faced with PacifiCorp as you run your daily operations?
Well, we are a single tenant, but we do have 2 different call centers, and each call center is its own routing engine, and that creates 2 sets of log files, and 20 megabyte log files are can be very difficult. What Visualizer brings to the table is the ability to merge log files, so I can take 5 or 6 15-minute log files, merge them all together, and now I have a 1-hour image or a 2-hour image of the call center, and then, of course, a full day visual representation. So for us, it's the segmentation and the size of the log files.
Excellent. Good. So it wouldn't be a breakout session without a bit of shameless self-promotion. So I'm going to do that now. So let me start off, Daniel, what were some of the motivations around selecting Visualizer? Can you tell us some of those things?
Yeah, so
There'll be a test on this answer, like at the end, for everyone to make sure. I'm just kidding. It's after lunch. This is as funny as I'm going to get. So,
for us, obviously, with the Genesis platform, lots of logs, lots of different things to dive into. For us, another real big motivation was staff. We had some decent turnover at different periods. And so to have staff, you have to come in and kind of reteach them, and here's all the logs and all that stuff. And yeah, we have documentation, but it's much easier, much more simplified when you have a centralized tool that allows you to do that. So we found that we could get operations people, or we're finding that we can get operations people, even my own engineering teams, up to speed much faster. And the dive down into it is spent more on the platform and not on what log to go into and things of that.
okay. Todd, how about you at PacifiCorp? What were some of the motivating factors around the selection of Visualizer there?
Well, it's all about log files. Being able to find out where to go into the different log files, finding the right con ID, and then going to the ORS, URS logs, and just to narrow down on what we're looking at. That was the first thing that hit us with the Genesis implementation.
Okay. Chris, what about some of the other clients that we've talked to? I know that we've had some feedback from some business users in the identification of patterns and trends. What have you seen in that area?
Absolutely. The rendering of a visual image, as we've been saying, leads to pattern recognition. So we're able to see what successful calls will normally look like, successful activity, successful patterns essentially that you're looking for, and anomalies that would stand out from it. Obviously, the color coding that you're seeing on the screen of the event tracks, that's the track view that we call. They're coded, for unique event types. So what you're looking at, blue is kind of an established. You're looking at agent activity and place activity, which is on the screen right now. So blue are established events. Orange holds. Fuchsia is kind of a dial out event. Pink and green are not ready of the agents. So this is typical call activity, but you can see that a scenario at another client. They noticed through their visualizer that there was a series of very dense calls that had arrived with very short established times. So if you're observing what would be a day series of events, you just see a very dense section of calls. Now, it can easily be explained away, with standardized reporting. It's just call counts, average call times, and things of the like. But when you get to drill down and see something anomalous that stands out, you can see if an agent is reshuffling calls back up into the queue just to normalize or standardize their numbers. Activities such as queue surfing, toggling a not ready event just to make them least longest available while ready. They can span a long period of time as there's many agents available, just doing that activity and not taking calls. So analyzing that using traditional log methods becomes very difficult. You're doing time differential for event change and things of the like, whereas it would stand out as a pattern that's anomalous to everyday activity.
And I think that's one of the keys that from a pattern standpoint, is that the visual representation really does help expose things that would be virtually impossible to see just through log analysis or other traditional forms of research. So can you give an example, Todd, we'll start with you this time, around how maybe you've been leveraging Visualizer or using it in an effort to improve operations as you've transitioned from Avaya or other things. Do you have any examples there?
Well, actually, Visualizer is the first tool in our toolkit. Whenever we get a report from the business that they've had an issue, this is the first place we go. We had an event where the call center called us and said, we're not getting any more calls, which is incredibly frightening, particularly on a Saturday. So pop open Visualizer, and on the left side of the screen, at least on our installation, we have very significant DNSs, very descriptive. And looking through that, you can immediately see 5-6 hours on the left-hand side of what kind of activity you've had. And as you scroll down, you find one VDN that is just black with activity, because every call fits itself into that same bar. You can, of course, stretch it out so you can see the detail. But when you scroll down, you find one VDN is completely black. That's where all the calls are landing. And now we know exactly where to start troubleshooting.
Perfect, perfect. Dan, anything from your operations at West and that you'd like to speak about?
Yep. So just recently we had a customer call in and say, hey, we've had 2 calls come in, and one's supposed to be a higher priority than the other one. They came in roughly the same time, but we're showing that the agent is getting the lower priority call first instead of the higher priority. And this is one of those moments, right? Typically we'd be like, whatever, you're full of it, right? You're not giving us the real deal. We pulled up Visualizer, though, and clearly we could see exactly what was going on. And it was something then that we turned around and sent the logs and sent everything to Genesis, and they're actually reviewing through it to see what's going on, if it's just something simple like routing or whatever. But this is something that probably would have taken us days maybe to dive through multiple logs if we even would have been able to find it. And I mean, we found this in a matter of hours, and again, could clearly show it. I'm a very visual person. So something like this obviously makes a ton more sense for me, because I don't have to look at the text and kind of convert it in my head to what it looks like. So, I mean, it was a very fast, real-life example that just happened last week or 2 ago.
Great, great. Chris, what are some of the other things that you've seen working with other clients around maybe proactively identifying things before there is an issue or before it's reported? Can you give some examples of that?
Absolutely. We have an example that we kind of show in our demo. We can all speak to later, but if you're looking at, let's say, IVR ports, and you have some ports that are maybe not functioning properly. So the activity may be that a call is getting routed to an IVR port, and the experience of the customer is just constantly listening to ringing, and there's no treatment being played for whatever reason. If you're looking in Visualizer at IVR ports, the pattern would be standardize a ringing event and then a blue established event for when the message is playing. But if the constant ringing, you just see constant yellow where it ends in an event abandoned or event release if there's some sort of timeout. So just quickly scrolling through a file, you can very see that yellow bands will stand out and just not fit within a pattern. So that proactive notification you're not going to hear from necessarily a client that calls back in and said, I just got a busy signal continuously. Well, maybe you dialed the wrong number. That might not get reported up to your contact center. It'd have to be some usage report, and then maybe you may stumble over it, but this is very clear that, hey, we have an issue, and the experience is not what we intend it to be.
Right. Todd, how about maybe what's been the most interesting thing that you found so far since using Visualizer in your environment? Do you have anything that you can think of?
I really enjoy the undesirable behavior queries that are actually built into the product. You can see one of them in particular is the on-hook, off-hook, or the on-hold, off-hold state change. And when you run that query, then you get a list of agents that meet the criteria that their behavior is unusual.
And what about, have you seen any positive impact for your SLAs? I mean, you mentioned how going back to the client, being able to prove an issue was or was not an issue. I would think that would have a positive effect on your ability to manage your SLAs with your other clients.
Yeah, so a big part for us, when an incident comes in, right, I'm sure all of you deal with the same thing. An incident comes in, you get the initial reports. We spend, a bunch of time just trying to figure out how valid that is. Things like ghost calls, one-way audio, those have so many different meanings to different people. So for us, being able to actually go in and see the visualization of what's really going on has dramatically reduced that upfront investigation of what truly is the problem. So we've seen much faster mean time to resolve on any incidents that we've had, which obviously increases our SLAs.
Right, perfect. One of the things that I know that we've talked about a little bit is around, one of the benefits rather, is around the fact that Visualizer captures the configuration setting at the time of the event. Can either of you speak to how that's been valuable in a real business situation or real scenario where being able to tell what the configuration settings were at the time of event was?
My use of the configuration settings have been to be able to launch additional queries in the system. We had a situation, I love to tell this story. We had a situation where there was an agent or a caller who called and complained, and they said that they were hung up on. And so I took a look at the con ID, because that's what the call center supervisor gave to me. And I pulled up the con ID up on the top, on the very top bar, that's your query. So we typed in con ID equals that, and we searched it. And the beautiful thing is that Visualizer captures everything. On the left-hand side, I could see the IVR port they came in on. I could see the post-route VDN they came in on, the way they were sent to. Then I can see the agent ID that it was transferred to. And so looking at the agent ID on the right-hand side, my configuration manager has all of these links. And those are clickable. So up top of agent ID, I click on the link, and now the agent ID pops into the query, and all I see now is the agent ID. Well, this agent was taking the call, and what you could see was pink. They were in after-call work. Right? They weren't available for a call. And then as soon as they became ready, it went green just for a sliver, because we were busy. We were getting slammed. It went green just for a second, and then it went yellow to ringing, and then it went blue. 7 seconds later, call disconnect. And pink. The next call comes in. A little bit of green, they're ready. Some yellow, they're ringing. And then blue, they're talking for 7 seconds, disconnect. So what we were able to identify is an agent who is trying to trick the system into giving them fewer calls. But it was so readily available because the whole bar, just a little tiny blips of blue, and you had to drill in to find it. It's a wonderful way to be able to pick and choose using configuration manager information on the right-hand side to click and create new queries.
And the fact of being able to see all of those agents' calls easily displayed in one scenario to find that it was a repetitive pattern and not the isolated incident,
Exactly.
as it was said. Yeah, excellent. Anything?
You know, the only thing I would say is, you know, when you look up at the picture, it looks like just a lot of colors and a lot of different things, and it looks like it's a little bit tough to read. When you actually can see it up close and you can see what each one of those bars and colors and all of that means, you know, Todd's dead on. It helps you definitely get to the point of being able to see exactly what is going on, and you can see either a pattern across multiple calls, or if you just need to see one specific agent, or if you need to see, I mean, there's just a ton of different kind of data and visual representation that you can see.
Chris, anything to add?
Yeah, just to add on there, the way Visualizer works, obviously monitoring the config manager or config server itself, you're going to get messaging for configuration changes. So over the day in the contact center, if skill changes are happening, agent skill changes, we capture at the time of event what is represented for agent skills is what is true when the event occurred. So you are able to see if a change occurred, change in behavior, change in activity. The example we give is, you know, someone may report that they received a call erroneously. They got the wrong call that they were supposed to. And yep, we can go back and look and say, yep, your skills changed right before this call started. So you're able to monitor these things and include them into the holistic view that you see of the activity going on in the day.
One of the things that I know I've spoken with some clients when we talk about that is just that communication. And you, Dan, you alluded to that earlier when you were talking about the ability to go back to your clients with, you know, facts and not so much back and forth. My belief is focus on the facts and data tends to improve communications. Would you agree with that? And has the tool helped with that to make it essentially a more collaborative customer environment with that? And same thing's true, you know, perhaps for you, Todd, but I know in a multi-tenant environment, it's particularly critical for.
Yeah, for sure for us. You know, whenever you find something, when somebody reports an incident and it is different from what they reported, it's just it's a difficult conversation to have with somebody and be able to say, oh, that's not exactly the behavior that we're seeing, but we can see it. But for sure on this, it's helped the relationships. It's helped a lot of that because we can just give very fact-based information to our customers and show them again. Also, you know, a lot of the people that we're dealing with aren't technical people or whatever, right? They're just looking at it from a business or a call flow or whatever is being reported. So a visual representation of that and being able to give that to them is a much easier conversation to have than pointing to a bunch of text inside of 14 files that you got to try to translate for them. This has been a huge help with that specific part of it.
So, you know, one of the things that always, whenever we're talking about enterprise software is, you know, how long is it going to take me to be up and running? Is this a 9-month project? Am I going to have to wait a year before I see an ROI? I'd like to ask you guys about, you know, what did it take pretty much after signature to have the installation and get you going. Todd, you want to go first, and Dan?
Sure. It was pretty simple, actually. We had a real-time phone call with the support team, and they walked me through building the app on Genesis, and then we had the installation loaded on the server, jumped into the server, web-based application, simple configuration. It's so straightforward. It's so simple. It's easy to understand, and it builds my confidence in administering the system in the future.
So, start to finish, a couple weeks?
Oh, yeah. The actual installation, about an hour and a half. As far as support and the full installation, we probably spent about 3 weeks. And, Chris kept hounding us, how do you like this system, you guys? How are you using it? How's it going?
Excellent. Before we go to Dan, Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about your role after post-implementation in that scenario?
Yeah, we've kind of adopted an approach to maintain and continue contact after what would be typical deployment. Previously in our models, that would kind of be the end, and we'd sever there. Deployed, launched, knowledge transfer, and said and done. But we've kind of taken an approach to set up touchpoint calls. We're kind of working with a 4-week span or 4-session span whenever scheduled, just to follow up post and let the system soak in, collect data, let the client observe what they're seeing, have questions, help in query development. It comes with prepackaged queries, but again, you have the ability to create things that are more specific and unique to your environment that can be saved, shared, and really just help give you a larger toolbox to help solve issues. So we try to keep that, I hate to use the term hand-holding, but I mean, it's just a access to answer questions, help in query development, point you in the right direction, give you that toolkit to continue on in your successful use of Visualizer.
Dan, from the time servers were available to capturing production data, what's the approximate timeline for you guys?
Yeah, it was very fast for us. I had servers available. Matter of fact, we were getting servers available, I think, while maybe the guy was in the air flying to a typical deal. But from the time that they got on site, we actually had them do 3 different environments. We had a sysdev, a pre-prod, and a prod environment, and they wiped out all 3 of them within 5 business days.
Wiped out in a positive sense, meaning completed, not destroyed. So just to be clear,
that's on us. We do our own wiping out. We don't need help. But we had it all up and ready, gathering data and starting to look through it. We actually had some time even during the 5 days to get some kind of on-site training with the expert. And then the touch points have been a huge thing for us. The allowing the teams to go in, starting to use this, use the tool. It takes them a long time at first because they're still trying to familiarize themselves. But then they bring that kind of real life scenario to the next session that we have, and it's been very valuable to see. Well, this is how we went about it, and it took us 3 hours. And Chris says, well, you should have just clicked this, and it takes 2 seconds. But the follow-up and the touch points have been very, very good. And truthfully, he says 4 touch points. We've called him, I think, beyond that, multiple occasions, and probably will for a very long time.
And that's great. I mean, it doesn't end with the 4 touch points. We just kind of build that into what is our professional service delivery. But beyond that, it's about continuing the relationship and make sure the tool is helping. So the email channels and the phone is always open. So
yeah, absolutely. So one of the things with that ramp up, you mentioned the ramp up. Any special considerations, any gyrations, change to workflow, anything you had to do special to accommodate any of this, or did it go in pretty seamlessly?
Yeah, we're seeing a little bit. Obviously, we still have a lot of people that are embedded with looking through logs and going through the normal stuff. So we've had to change some of our processes and really kind of get people into the mindset of looking at this first. And we're starting to push down a lot of our initial conversations about what the problem is to lower levels. Instead of it being escalated up through multiple tiers and possibly to an engineering team, we're continuing to push the response down to the lowest levels because of the tool. So that's been a big part for us.
I think that's one of the underappreciated, maybe unexpected returns on the investment with the product that we've seen with a couple of other clients as well, is the fact that things that previously had to go to more senior and more expensive technicians are now being handled by a tier 1 to a great degree. Some clients, to a great percentage of tickets, go push down to that, and that's allowed obviously resources to be freed up to do internal projects and some things that couldn't be gotten to before. So you're seeing that?
We've definitely seen that. And like I said, it's helping us from a training as we're bringing new people on board also. But we're also seeing that that's going down, which allows, my engineering teams to focus on, revenue generating projects. It allows the operations teams to be looking at bigger items. And we're trying to get it down to, as low a level as we can within the hierarchy of operations, again, to free up the resources and the time of the higher end.
Good. Todd, what about any changes, workflow, process changes, or other things, or pretty well integrated? Anything you'd like to comment on in that category?
Like Dan was saying before, sending somebody an email with a bunch of log text is not very, educational for them. It's how do you read that? Our processes now have changed from just taking screenshots of visualizer, first from the higher level to the lower level, drilling down, and through pictures, our businesses can see that we do have a problem, we don't have a problem. The thing about a visual representation is that it speaks volumes in seconds, faster than I could read, faster than I could speak.
Right. It is the old analogy, picture worth 1,000 words. Chris, I wanted to kind of wrap up a bit of this with, you've got to work with all of the clients really to date here that we've talked about. So what are some of the other best practices or things that you've seen, maybe anything that we haven't covered that you might mention from other clients or their experience that's there?
Best practice, it kind of has shifted kind of to Dan's point of, and that is the first go-to tool. Pointing visualizers being used as first, it'll get you to where you want to be quicker. So, at the beginning of this conversation, we kind of said, the bulk of the time of responding to an issue has been the triaging of logs, the gathering of logs. And anyone who's familiar with using Genesis logs, it rolls over very quickly in large environments. Calls that may be transferred across sites. You're going to be looking at different application logs, whether it be T servers, several T servers, trying to consolidate that all together. The centralization essentially just gets you there quicker, and the ability to view much quicker. So it is using that tool and going there first. It cuts out that whole lead time of, okay, I'm gathering my information to need, now I can start looking at the issue. With Visualizer, you could just start looking at the issue. It's very quick. It's a matter of minutes. One of our largest clients, our largest deployment to date, typically they're a 5,000 seat center. Their typical SLA or return of result time was 4 to 6 hours. They took it down to 30-minute resolution time. So it's obvious what the efficiencies that were gained there, and they absolutely love the tool. So
yeah, I remember one comment from the director of that group said that if the tool goes away, that the employees have said they're quitting in mass. So we like to hear that. So it gives us an excuse to raise maintenance rates. That was a joke. That was a joke, right? So I'm just kidding. Before we're going to move to a quick Q&A session, take some questions at the end. There's one thing that I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, and then I want to say thanks to the participants. But one of the things that we're also seeing that's sort of that hidden value or the return on investment that's seen is the business users being able to use the pattern analysis. So being able to see in the customer journey segments, like you can look at segmentation of different clients, be able to identify those clients, look at the typical journeys that they're going to. We're seeing clients that are finding lots of absolutely shocking things, right? Premium level clients that are being, placed on hold and transferred 3 times, and just really unexpected journeys to arrive at their end result. And that's allowed them to become more proactive and turn that around and try and gain a better customer experience, and using the tool to do that. And I think that's really one of the things, at the heart of the design and the vision that we had for the product, that's really one of the things that we want to focus on, is to continue to develop that. One of the other things that I'd like to mention is with the upcoming release, we've done an integration based on customer feedback is, can I hear that call? So we've got an integration with that'll be released very soon, certainly before the end of the year, with Genesis recording, so that you can, if you find a call that has an unusual or abnormal experience, you can click on that call and actually hear the recording and hear what happened and be able to use that, adding sound or audio to the picture of the events that happened. So Todd, Daniel, I want to say thank you very much. I'd like for y'all to give them a great round of applause, take time out of their schedule. I really do appreciate it. I mean, it means a ton to hear, Chris and I can stand up here and talk, but hearing real life examples, for them to take the time to do that, that's a big deal. It's a real chore to come, other places to Miami and suffer through the sun and the nice breeze. I don't know how they bear up, frankly. Chris, thank you for this. One of the things that we've built into the process, again, has been the Touchpoints, taking a lot of Chris's time. He's really responsible for the customer success and making sure that the adoption's there. So, one last little bit of shameless self-promotion is if you'd like to see the demo, or you'd like to schedule a demo, or we can even do a demo with your own personal data, we can get that set up. Please come see us at the booth. We're there. We're going to be there whether you come by or not, and frankly, we love the distraction, so please come by and see us. You can also schedule demonstrations via our ARIA website, and so we've got other materials and other great information that's available there. So with that, I'll open up the floor to questions. I'm going to ask that if you guys can say the question, I'll repeat it just so everybody can hear it, and then we'll go. And please be sensitive to the fact that there may be some things related to client data or other things that, that our participants may or may not be able to answer, so we'll do that. Chris can answer anything, so that's good. Any questions? Anyone have any comments? Yes? Is there a situation or issue that you cannot track within Visualizer? So,
Well, there was a situation where I was trying to track an event in Visualizer. I couldn't find it in Visualizer. I started going through the T-server logs, SIP server logs, SIP proxy logs, couldn't find it there. Turns out that it never hit our Genesis platform. So if you don't see it in Visualizer, it didn't go to Genesis.
Yeah, we haven't either yet. We've probably only had the tool, I think we've been using it now for about 5 weeks, 6 weeks, so we're still fairly new into it. So we've already seen a lot of benefit, but nothing that we haven't been able to resolve. And you know, when I first looked at this and I said it to these guys, I'm used to looking at SIP ladder diagrams and things of that nature, right? Which is not what this is, right? It's definitely the call flow aspect of it.
Right.
But I've already been pimping them to say, hey, add the SIP ladder diagram. I'd like to see the SIP messaging and all that too. So we'll see if that comes out future.
Chris, anything you want to add on that? I think that's pretty well sums it up.
It's a series of, the entire data that's being shared through those interactions is being captured and collected. So if it's touched your Genesis environment in any way, it's going to be logged as an event. If it generates an event, the event is listened to and captured. Because we're listening to the data stream, we're not analyzing necessarily a log file. We've also found that some logs, depending on size of the attached data stream, they truncate some of the events. So some of the back-end events are missing from the actual log file. So some true log readers or log analyzers may be missing a piece of the picture. Now, it just depends on the construct, how large it is or not. But since we're tapped into the data stream, we are listening to the entire broadcast. The full event and all details are going across the channel. We're able to capture it all. So, you know,
we don't have any truncation with the capture of the events.
That's right. It doesn't get truncated. And we feel that, you know, we are getting that full data set, attached data, everything that's traveling with the calls there. You know, 99% of scenarios that we've thought of are all logged information that we see in the visual.
It's all what? I'm sorry.
TLib?
Yeah.
Yes, we are listening to the Genesis TLib events. Yeah, that's the side that we are listening to.
Other questions? Yes. Okay, that's good feedback from a enhancement standpoint to look at the schedule of the day. So
yeah, as of right now, no, we don't have that linkage, but you do get that displayed daily activity of the agents. So you will get accurate timestamps of occurrences, when started, when not ready, when logged out, when logged in. They are captured. It can be a validation point,
right.
That tie in or pulling in of data.
Yeah, there's no ambiguity in the system with what the agent's state was, but it's not matching that or correlating it directly today with the workforce management schedules. But if there was someone saying, "Oh no, I wasn't. I was ready," or I mean, it's very unambiguous. Other questions? Yes.
Have you tried using Visualizer with ORS and URS for routing?
So URS and ORS, when they're going through their decision-making process, they aren't necessarily relaying that information across the network through TLib to, let's say, a T server, which is one of the applications we're listening to. It ends up relaying the
result.
finalized target and the
Yeah.
result of the decision tree. So as of right now, since we're tapping into those streams and we are listening to that broadcast, that events, that is essentially what we're capturing. So as it's going through its decision-making process, that isn't being broadcast, and it,
We know the result, right? I think that's the key. We know the result, but not the, right, we would, yeah. You would know, yes, you would know where the instance occurred, and you'd be able to go specifically to that spot in the logs to be able to see what was going on at the decision-making process. But you do see the result of the routing. Do you want to?
yeah, you would get all the our target data that's kind of there. So your targeting string essentially is present in the attached data that in the end result. So if you're doing some sort of target expansion, it may lead you down a branch that you may be aware. Obviously, it went this path. It is a time saver in that sense. So it may lead you to a section of your routing code and isolate it for you, may help you get there and quicker. So you can identify the call that was erroneous much more quickly than trying to gather where that call existed, then go correlate it back to your URS logs.
Yeah.
It's that upfront timeline to get as much data quickly as possible to then start from that point.
That's been the
We're saving
feedback
the
that
front
we've,
end.
that's been the feedback that we've gotten. It helps people isolate that exactly, so they're moving through. So it's still dramatically reducing any troubleshooting with that area, because it's a very finite area that's pointed out. Any other questions? We'll give you guys a couple of minutes back. I'll try and end at 10 after, so we got a couple minutes. Yes.
Are you guys trying to get into this messaging and also example,
So the good. Yeah, so we have had several requests around the SIP messaging, so that is something that we are evaluating and looking at. There are some things available that make that visually represented, but I still think there may be some value for us incorporating it in our tool, so that is something that we're looking at. So, all right. Well, guys, like I said, my goal was to end 5 minutes early, because every session I've been to has ended 5 minutes late and created chaos, and it drives me crazy because I'm very punctual. So I wanted to give you guys a couple minutes back. And again, if you have questions, we're going to hang around for a minute, and then we're also at the booth. We'd really love to see this and show it to you. So thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.